Hi everybody, I got my favorite books here. It's going to be in show and tell today. I recommend a whole slew of books to my practice members. I've got a list going and I wanted to share some of them with you today. This is going to be a show and tell episode, just like in kindergarten. Remember those days? But first, hi, I'm Dr. Lisa Ann Homick from Homick Advanced Chiropractic, where we advance your life by reacquainting you with your body, and Brain First Boot Camp. Why do I make these videos? Well, one, I don't have time to share all this life-changing information with you during your chiropractic office visit, so we do it online. You've got that opportunity there. And number two, my campaign for this year and forever is going to be this: everybody must grow their talents every day. In fact, we must expand our talents beyond our comfort zones. And it can't be done with an impaired brain, and we've got a lot of brain drain out there. We need your full participation in the world. Your talents can help make the world a better place. You have to share. Don't keep it to yourself. Expand it. Discover everything exciting about you. And that's the point of chiropractic care, helping you discover who you are and what you are capable of. I also teach the Brain First protocol. Why? Because brain first, body follows. And this video here will introduce you to some of the teachings about Brain First Boot Camp. You can kick the tires watching these videos. Eventually, you're going to realize, though, when you kick tires, you don't get anywhere. You've got to actually get in the car, turn on the key, and drive. How do you do that? Well, you get scheduled under your belt some Brain First Boot Camp coaching sessions. Let's not go through life with brain drain. Even brain death is an actual medical diagnosis, and we don't want to go there. Your spine-brain circuitry needs to be nurtured. So welcome to today's topic. Number one book. This is the easiest book about chiropractic. Chiropractic First. Funny that title. The fastest growing healthcare choice before drugs and surgery. Very introductory, very easy to read. You can read this, I don't know, in an hour. And the cool thing in this book is the picture of Winifred Gardella when she was a little girl. She had polio, whatever that means in our medical language of the day. She couldn't walk. She was the March of Dimes poster child. She went to the chiropractor because her grandparents took her. They were, getting tired of the medical approach. Now, 6 months later, she is walking with her chiropractor. Pretty cool. Is chiropractic a cure for polio? We don't cure anything. In fact, nothing is really curable, and that's another video altogether. But chiropractic made her nervous system handle life a little bit better. That's the whole point of chiropractic. Wake Up Humans, Dr. Steve Judson. This book is about how the very top part of your neck is going to unlock your brain power. He had a brother with severe mental illness. He didn't realize until it was kind of late in the game that the chiropractic care really helped his brother with the symptoms of mental illness. And he was kind of miffed that this was not communicated to him in chiropractic school or even the chiropractic world. But now it's here for everybody to read and understand. Here we go. Listen, this book, why you get sick and how your brain can fix it. Because brain first, your brain can fix it. Why are you sick? This book really dives into the neurological process. It goes into the benefits of understanding neuroplasticity. You can teach your brain. In fact, you've already taught your brain everything it can do. And if there's something you need to unteach it, this book will explain why that works and why chiropractic speeds up the process. Change or Die. This was a pretty interesting book. I wish the author actually wrote a sequel to this because this was very compelling. Let me think back. It was Harvard or Johns Hopkins or someplace. They said all the heart patients that they had, if even though they were told if you don't change your lifestyle, you're going to die, I think it was 90% of them did nothing. They're stuck in fear. And the journalist actually studied, how do people change? What's the motivating factor? And he really goes deep into that. 3 exciting case studies. This is a very interesting, another easy read. Very because it's a story. He tells it in a story type of genre, and the interviews are very one-on-one, personal. So check that out as well. Now let me get into some of the food choices. How to feed your brain. Fighting insulin resistance with strength training. So Dr. William Shang, he lives around here. I've met him. I've been to one of his lectures, and he talks all about how keeping your muscles toned actually protects your body from blood sugar imbalances. And very interesting, and it constantly reminds me I better keep exercising, although it's not always my most favorite fun thing to do. But this is a really good book, very easy to explain, and nuts and bolts, even tells you what types of exercise, how to get started. But it has to be strength training. And I'm getting confused here with resistant training. Another good book. Let's see. Why stomach acid is good for you, Dr. Jonathan Wright. Now, if you do not have enough stomach acid, you're not going to break down your food, especially your protein. And stomach acid actually tells the pancreas what to do and tells the liver what to do, the gallbladder. And if that communication aspect is missing, you are going to starve. You're going to have B12 deficiency, anemia possibly. This explains why you need acid when all the rest of the world wants you to take antacid medications. So very useful book, and I recommend that one as well. The Statin Damage Crisis. This is written by this guy here. He was a medical doctor and an astronaut, suffered from severe amnesia from taking statin medication. He collected all kinds of data from his patients who also suffered the same thing, wanted the FDA to be aware of it, and guess what the FDA did? Ignored him. Very good story. He suffered immensely with almost a Parkinsonian type of side effect, and went through years and years constantly trying to rehabilitate himself. Very good story. Check that out. Dwayne Graveline, medical doctor, MD. How to Cure Diabetes, Sherry Rogers, MD. I like this book because she goes into depth about what nutrients you need to function properly. And if you're not getting these nutrients, your body's just, I'm going to say, starving. And when you're starving, your tissues get weak. You fall apart. But she talks about the journal articles, published scientific research that actually tell you medication gets you nowhere. In fact, I probably highlighted it in the front of the book. Let me take a peek. Okay, here we go. Page 3 at the very top, I wrote metformin is fertilizer for cancer. I'm quoting her, and she talks about this in her book. Let's see. If you lower hemoglobin A1C to less than 6 with all the medications available, you actually increase your relative death rate 22%. Why? And she goes into more explanation here, but the drugs don't repair your body chemistry. They just lower your lab numbers. You look good on paper. She said just because you look great on paper, you're going to silently and mysteriously deteriorate. So that's just one little sneak preview to this book. This is actually good for all around health, not just diabetes. So if you want to prevent diabetes, or you just want to have a wellness lifestyle, very good book here as well. And she really tears apart the scientific literature that explains what you really need for health, but most doctors aren't reading these research articles. They're not getting to them. So you have access to that. Another book written by Sherry Rogers, Wellness Against All Odds. Some people need a high meat diet to get healthy. Some people need more vegetables and more vegetarian. She really goes into the difference between the two and how you have to experiment to figure out what you need. So very interesting book. Sherry Rogers said in an interview that when she has to go get recertified for her her extra diplomates or boards, whatever they call them in the medical world, she has to take time off from her job. She's retired now, but she would have to study the wrong answers in order to pass these recertification examinations. Now that is really crazy when you hear a doctor say that. She knows what works in real life. She knows what you need and she prescribes what you actually need, but then she has to study incorrect information in order to get the right grade to pass and keep her certification going. I thought that was just nuts, but it's true. And now that I am taking recertification courses, I'm picking up bits and pieces here and there, and I say, oh, I don't follow that anymore. That's just not, it's not reality, and you have to sort through the information. That to me is just wild, freaky wild. Let's see. If you want to understand stress, The End of Stress. This is an easy read. You can read this in 2 or 3 days, and very usable. You learn how to pick up some quick tips, how to reverse your thinking, change your thinking around. 4 steps to rewire your brain. This book is so easy to understand, and the statistics here are mind-boggling as well. Mind-boggling as, why do we worry so much? Don't quote me, but he said when people were surveyed, when they had to deal with a very difficult problem, they stressed so much about it, and then they realized like 80% of them said everything worked out just fine. I was over worrying for no reason. The other 20%, they had to do a little extra work, and then they realized about 15% of them said no matter I had to change things around in my life, and no, I ended up not having an earthquake swallow me up. So what am I trying to say? That most of the time when you're worrying, it's for no reason. Most people get through it, and this is supposed to help you calm down so you're not wasting time having angst and being anxious. This is very good for that type of issue. How to just remodel your brain a little bit, how to put just some quick shortcuts in order to de-stress yourself. They can't find anything wrong, so this doctor really delves into what he calls stress illness, and these are going to be emotional things that really your body just goes off the deep end with. And now remember, I always tell you everything the body does is correct for this situation, and he worked with chronically sick people who had no reason to be sick according to medical tests and medical studies, and they were just suffering, even hospital, bedridden. And he talks to them about what types of emotional stressors that kind of got buried deep into their brain and body. And he talks about childhood, young adulthood. These things kind of take hold like a weed with a deep root, and he also has a simple formula for trying to dig deep and figure out what it is so you can release that. And a lot of great success stories in here. I need to reread this one again. I actually have it on my Kindle, and I bought this a few weeks ago at one of those discount online book stores. That's why I thought this was so interesting. Now, Wired for Healing by Annie Hopper. This really delves into how your limbic system works and how some people who have a limbic system that's taken control of their lives to the point where they have to live in isolation, away from electricity, away from chemicals, away from any kind of thing that causes allergies. And this teaches you how to reprogram your limbic system. It just happens. If you have enough stress in your life, it'll memorize everything, and you feel like you are not a part of your body anymore. Very good illustration about the limbic system and how that works. Wired for Healing. And remember, when what fires together wires together, and sometimes there's two things happening at the same time in your life and totally not related, but they change your brain. So a little bit of detective work, but she uses I would call it a systematic desensitization in order to just get your brain to calm down and not be so overwhelmed by regular stimuli that most of the time we should be okay with. Okay. Norman Doidge, The Brain That Changes Itself and the Brain's Way of Healing. Another great easy reads. They're in story format. He interviewed people with great healing stories. Very optimistic, very inspiring. So Norman Doidge, these are the books that are just a great read to help you realize what your brain can do. One of these books talks about Dr. Taub and the stroke patients, the studies he did on stroke, and how if one side of your body isn't working and the other side takes over, you can teach this side to wake back up again. And he talks about studies he did with monkeys, and the animal rights group didn't really appreciate what he did, but it was pretty wild to see how if a monkey they lost nerve supply on this side of the body, they would use this hand to grab a banana, but then they would tie up this hand, and while this one is still paralyzed, the monkeys were able to use them again. You can do something very similar to that. So great examples here to show that the brain can relearn things. And that's what we do chiropractically. The chiropractic adjustment helps you open up that window for new learning. And if you use chiropractic in that way, your learning curve is shrunken down. You can do things and more efficiently. You can learn at a faster pace, and that is pretty amazing for your body. A couple more books left. Keto Period. So this is written by Maria Emmerich and Craig Emmerich. This talks about the fundamentals of the keto diet. I call keto the original human diet, and we haven't changed much over the thousands and thousands of years on the earth. And very easy explanations. I like things that are easy, don't you? Alzheimer's research, dementia, menopause, fertility. What else? Asthma. What can we do when we give our body the foods we were intended to eat? We were made to eat them, not this processed new stuff. Not all this fancy-dancy factory-made food. Keto Period. This really goes into nice explanation, and so it's doable. Talks a lot about weight loss, and very little, little sidebars with interesting stories and examples. Another good one to keep on your shelf. Last one, the Deflame Diet. This talks about how inflammation from your food choices are going to wreak havoc on your body. Okay, I had to pause the camera just for a second because I couldn't remember where the markers of inflammation are. So I give my folks in the office a list of what their lab values should be. How can they actually know if they're helping their inflammation go down, other than reducing your pain levels, which sometimes isn't always going to be as accurate because our stress level changes throughout the day and our inflammation might go up and down. But for the chronic cause of inflammation, which would be the dietary influences, I have there's a list on here of what your labs should be. This is page 48 of the D-Flame diet. So the main thing I tell people is your hemoglobin A1C needs to be 5.7 or less. That means that's considered normal. 5.7 or less. I know a lot of people who stay around 7 and they're considered okay. They're in the okay range. That's not true. If it may be for your as Dr. Sherry Rogers said, you look good on paper, but that doesn't mean you are feeling good and living good. You've got to have quality of life. Get that A1C at 5.7. This book explains how. And it talks about blood pressure, your triglycerides, where they need to be. Also, cholesterol, don't freak out about cholesterol. It's really not too great of an indicator. It will indicate if you're dehydrated. That's one thing. Or if you're dealing with a lot of toxins in your body. But cholesterol and heart health, not really that useful. And what your waist to hip ratio needs to be, things like that, your vitamin D level. So this is the D-Flame diet. That's the last book on my table here. I forgot one at home. I forgot my favorite one. Let me pause. Back again. Life Without Bread by Wolfgang Lutz, medical doctor from Austria. He lived to be 98 years old, following his own low-carb plan. And this is the very first book I really read to dive into this whole low-carb thing. This is before I really went keto, because he's more of a liberal low-carb. You can be around 60. Oh, his is 72 grams. 72 grams a day of carbs. And he said you'll have great blood pressure, your weight will be normal, all your other numbers will be normal. And this got me started. But what really intrigued me was in the first chapter 1 or chapter 2, he really explained what a saturated fat is. Because you think back to a chemistry class in high school, I knew exactly what a saturated bond was and an unsaturated bond. Well, guess what? Unsaturated is unstable. You need saturated. Remember those lines you had to draw between the C's and the O's and the H's? Your carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. But saturated bonds are stable. Saturated fat is actually what your heart needs to run on. I read that and I said, whoa! Now, this was more than 10 years ago. I'm thinking back. When did I actually read this book? That blew me away. So there you go. This is from the 80s. He wrote this book. Well, he was very popular in Austria. I don't think his book became across the ocean to us until about the 80s. But here you go. My Life Without Bread. And what else did I think that was interesting? He notes that vegetarian and vegans have high homocysteine, and that makes sense because you are not getting that B12 balance in your body. Low carb actually increases calcium without supplementation. I thought that was pretty intriguing as well. So I've got all my notes written inside here. Low fat leads to poor heart performance. I want my heart to be strong. There's no way I'm going to cheat my heart. In the most severe cases of heart disease he saw, the average cholesterol was 186. And that is really too low. There's such thing as low cholesterol as being too low. The heart uses fatty acids almost 100%, page 71. There you go. Vegetables and fruits, you're not getting enough CoQ10, L-carnitine, D, selenium, calcium, and B12. Here's an interesting one, page 85. Smokers get less cancer when they eat fat. There you go. This was the very first book that really got me transitioning out from old school thinking. And old school is actually not old school. This is old school. What our ancestors ate, that's old school. Quick picture here that got me very interested in this. A 13-year-old boy, obese. His body weight was over 250 pounds. After 3 months of low carbohydrate diet, he reduced his body volume and puberty began. So here you go. A child overweight is not going to meet the proper developmental milestones, and for a 13-year-old, of course, that's puberty. This took 2.5 years, and the before and after pictures, you can't see it here, but quite striking. Do we want our children living like this? No, we've got to be the good examples for our children. My battery is about to go kaput, and my next video will be the ones on my Kindle, my favorite books that are on the Kindle, and I haven't purchased them hard copy yet. Probably will, though. Thank you for watching, and look for the next video. This one was super long, but I hope you found it interesting. Thanks for watching.